Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to the second half of my first week of June on the Range. June on the Range is a reading event created by Michael K. Vaughn, and it's to celebrate Westerns in the month of June. To either reread Westerns or read books that you have not read, or discover Westerns. And for me, it's a reread for a couple things, but mostly they're new reads. I have read Westerns when I was younger, when I was a child. My father liked Zane Grey. And I remember the old sort of, I think they were a book club series. They had red spines and sort of cream-colored boards, hardcovers. And I remember reading those and other ones. And I continue reading Westerns on and off into early adulthood, but probably not since mid-'80s, really. I've watched a ton of Westerns. I do like the Western genre in film. So I jumped at the opportunity to be a co-host for June on the Range. And I've already done my first video, and that was for the Oxbow incident. It was my book to film, because the four books that I'm choosing this month are book to films. And if you want, you can just look. The video was up yesterday, or late Friday night, somewhere around there. And it's an unconventional Western, I would say, because Westerns sort of generally have I guess a theme to them, and sort of like tried and true tropes that have been done over and over again. Oxbow Incident is a little different than that, but it's still a Western, and a very good Western at that. So, and as I say, I'm reading novels, 4 novels. Next week will be The Searchers, and then will be Warlock, and then True Grit. But in between that, I am reading short stories, and specifically the Western short stories of Clifford D. Simak. Clifford D. Simak was a writer that, he was a science fiction writer first and foremost. Well, actually, first and foremost, he was a journalist, because in the late 20s, while he started out teaching, he lived from 1904? Or was I going to say 1906? 1904 to 1988. And he started out teaching a little bit, but then he went back to university for journalism. And in the 30s, he worked at a number of newspapers around the Midwest. He started out in Michigan, I think it was, and then he was moved around to other places in the Midwest to sort of either prop up ailing papers or change a weekly to a daily or daily to a weekly. He had various other jobs. But then late 30s, about 1939, he started working in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota, for the Tribune Star, which became that. And for a short period during the Second World War, he worked for the intelligence department somewhere about that for a little while. But then he went back to being a journalist, and he soon worked his way up to head editor. And he worked there. He worked there until mid-70s, about 1975, I think, or 76, when he retired. But during the 40s, he wrote a number of different things. Science fiction during the Second World War was it was a little tight because of paper and other writers. Like a lot of pulp magazines sort of shut down for a while. But the Western magazine, there was a lot of pulp magazines at that time, but he started writing for some Westerns, air war stories, Second World War stories, and possibly some other stuff in sort of, fishing stories. Well, they might have been nonfiction, but it's sort of hinted at in his journals and diaries. But anyway, he did write 14 that are known westerns, and started in May 1944 with the Lariat story magazine. And the first story that he wrote was called Smoke Killer. I don't have that one. These 14 stories, or 12 so far, have been reprinted in the complete short fiction of Clifford D. Simak. This is volume 5, and this has the first story that I'm going to deal with. But there's a Western story in each one, and there's 12 volumes that have been published so far. So there's 2 that are missing. I think it's the first one, Smoke Killer, and the fifth one. But these were all sort of 1944 to... he wrote one as late as 1952, but there was a bit of a gap between there. There might be more stories that are out there. He only kept an intermittent journal, a writing journal, saying that he submitted this story on this date, received, or if it was accepted, received X amount of dollars for it. So there might still be some other stories out there of his. Unlikely, but possible. So the second story that he wrote was called Cactus, Colts, and that was in Lariat Story Magazine also, and that was in July 1944. Now, according to his his journals, it might have actually been called Boot Hill Brothers Talk with Bullets, but it was changed to Cactus Colts. Now, this is a very short story, and it's under in here. It's literally only let's see how long it is here. 19 pages in here, so it's quite a short. Well, it's an average size story, I suppose. Now, and it's to be honest, it's not that good. It's okay, but it's very short, as I say, and it's got the usual sort of the very stereotypical sort of writing style. It's sort of like, it starts out here. Jeff Jones stumbled when a loose board on the steps in front of the silver dollar buckled beneath him. Snarling huskily, he reached out and grabbed a porch post to save himself from falling. Savagely, he wrenched his foot free from the broken board and glanced around, waiting for a yell of laughter that would greet his stumble. There was no laughter. There was no one to laugh. This Cactus City street drowsed dustily in the silent afternoon. The air was heavy with the heat, and the sunlight was something that came pouring from the molten bowl of sky, so brilliant it hurts one's eyes. Jeff's pony stood with drooping head beside the hitching post, the only living thing in sight. Like, basically, you can envision tumbleweeds down the street, and then every time when he walks, the jingle jangle of spurs. It's that type of thing, and it's a very basic story where this Jeff is coming to town. He's mistook for a hired gun that has the same surname. And but he's there because his brother has sort of got a farm, a ranch, and They were going to go in together, so he sent him some money and everything. But he's found out that his brother has disappeared, possibly dead. And it looks like the banker and the saloon owner are in cahoots together. Well, let's use that word. They're in cahoots together. And they sort of foreclose on mortgages and make people disappear in order to get the property and all the money. So, but he's mistook for, because these two, the banker and the saloon owner, are sort of now arguing. So the bank owner has hired a hired gun to either get rid of the saloon owner or at least protect him. But then the saloon owner thinks that this Jeff is the hired gun, so he says, okay, well, no, you work for me and you get rid of the banker, so. And it goes through. His brother isn't dead. He's pretending to be the town drunk, and they sort of clean up the town, with because of the banker and the the saloon owner. So there's a bit of gunfighting and a good fist fight that starts in the saloon and goes outside, and then ends in guns as well. So it's got your stereotypical, Western sort of feel to it. So it's not that good, but it was enjoyable. The second one was published in New Western magazine, September 1944, and this one's kind of interesting. Trail City's Hot Lead Crusaders. And it might have been again a change of name. Original title was Gunsmoke Goes to Press. And it was, and on this one he must have, because his two other stories, or his name, they thought his name was good because he's the uppermost story on the front cover. He with his third story, published Western, he's got a cover. He's on the cover. Simak is. So that says something about his name at that time, and even must be as a Western name as well, based on two stories before. But it's an interesting title, Hot Lead Crusaders, because it's about a newspaperman, a journalist who owns a small little paper in a small town, and he is the surname of the character is Carson, which is the younger brother of Clifford. And it was in the New Western magazine, as I was saying. He was paid $120 for it, and that's not bad for. And it's a longer story. It's about 35 pages long, almost what they would call a novel at that time. In the pulp magazine, and the magazine itself was only 15 cents. So he's a newspaper man, and the hot lead part is because the lead type, they would sometimes have to melt down the lead. So it has a double meaning: hot lead, a bullet, and newspaper type. So that was an interesting thing, but it's like there's a it's the open range. That's what you find out is the background. And there's a rich guy who's trying to put everybody else out, like, smaller homesteaders, and control the water. It's your typical sort of, these rich people trying to squash the sodbusters, sort of, in a sense. And, the open range is going to stop. The barbed wire is going to come in. The whole thing like this, but he's trying to stop this. And Carson, the newspaper man, is writing stories for this. But not only the landowner, he's in cahoots with a whole bunch of others, the banker, Lawyers, everybody there, like all the thing, because they're profiting from this. It's not a safe town because they control it. It's again your typical Western, but they try to buy him out, and he refuses to have them buy him out, and he sticks to his guns, sort of. But this is a little different. Like you do see in Western stories and in Western films, you sometimes do see the press showing. But how often have you seen a journalist, the person who is the journalist and the writer, be a gunslinger as well, who can shoot well? That doesn't happen very often. So Simak does some interesting things. Like it might be. I haven't read too many short stories in these magazines, so it might have been a thing that happened there. But I have seen dozens and dozens of hundreds of westerns, and I've never really come across something like this. But take it with a grain of salt. But I think it is a bit unique. So he refuses to do this. They're trying to set him up, and he kills somebody, and the sheriff's in with them too, and it's he's and then you got the other thing is a bit of a romance. He's sweet on the banker's daughter, and he's one of the sort of bad guys in a sense too, but he comes around in the end, because his daughter likes him. But he gets killed because the rich guy Fenimore kills him because he's changing sides now. Now what they do is they try to stop this from happening and everything like this. So there's some gunfights, and they also want to get the other homesteaders to come to help, but they're not able to because there are other people stopping them from leaving. This guy's henchmen are stopping them. However, the daughter saves the day, and she rides out and brings in the help, basically. So that's another thing that's interesting. Like the person who wins the day that helps out a lot is a female, which I have to think that's a bit unique too for Clifford Simak. So anyway, that's enough of that story. Basically, the third story is the Gravestone Rebels Ride by Night. And it was in Big Book Western magazine, and these things have, that one has like an exclamation mark at the end of the title. And this was called a novel, and it's around 45 pages. It was paid $175 for it, or if I didn't say, it was in November 1944. So this is his fourth story published. And this one has a lawyer. And the first thing I think of with a lawyer is the man who shot Liberty Valance. But he couldn't shoot. At least not well. This lawyer can shoot. There's another one, that a lawyer, unusual characters to be the hero. See, this is the thing with Simak. He always has, even in science fiction, he has unusual characters to be the hero. The newspaperman, the lawyer, and I'm sure there'll be a doctor somewhere, and there might be a teacher, there might be other people like that, or a goods the store owner or something like that. That's his kind of thing. So anyway, this is a new lawyer comes to town, and the banker is really, really friendly with him, and he's thinking there's something going on here. But there's no other lawyer in this town. And here's the thing. This story is basically the same story as Cactus Colts to a certain extent, but much longer and better. It's better because it's longer. It's more fleshed out. So this lawyer finds out that, again, it's the banker and the saloon owner are in cahoots, and they foreclose on mortgages, and they take the money, and they usually kill the person. And he sees a card game going on, a poker game, with a guy who has the money for his mortgage, but he knows that they're gonna swindle him out of it. So then they'll foreclose on it. So he stops that happening, and then he becomes a target. At that point, and he. And then again, it's like they have a shootout. He gets sort of arrested and all this kind of stuff, but there's others that come to help. But again, he get well, he doesn't get arrested so much, but the law is after him, and he breaks into the bank, and there's a blind guy that's there too, who is a safe cracker, but he's actually pretending to be blind. That's a little hard to believe, but okay, fine. And they ride out because they're being chased, because the banker is saying that they robbed the bank and killed the sheriff. The blind guy killed the sheriff, shot him. Yeah, okay. That's why I say the fake blind part didn't quite work that well. But anyway, so they get captured by the gang. And also, too, there's this guy is sweet on. He's got a girlfriend, or the woman there that he likes, that is the teacher, and she goes out every Saturday to ride and shoot, to practice her shooting and practicing her riding, and so she stumbles on him and she saves him. So and then all the ranchers come together and stop everything that's happened. So again, these are stereotypical stories, but I think they're with a twist. Unusual heroes. They're not the usual gun-toting person, but they are adept with a gun. So far, these are what we're seeing. And women in these two longer stories play a huge part in the story and the solving of it, and making it a happy ending. So, and that to me is very Simakian, I guess you would say. So I'm looking forward. Next week, I will be reading. Let's see here now. This week, I should say. Coming week, I will be reading. As I said, it'll be The Searchers by Alan LeMay for the book to film, and then there'll be three other Clifford Simak stories called The Reformation of Hangman's Gulch. And that was a big book Western magazines again, December 1944, and Way for the Hangtown Rebel, Ace High Western Stories, May 1945, and Good Nesters Are Dead Nesters, and 44 Caliber Western Magazine, July 1945. For these, I will be I'll list the details, the original details, and where it was published, plus the volume number in the complete stories. And these are published by Open Road. It's a bit longer than just Open Road. Open Road Integrated Media. And 12 of them have been published now in book form. The 9, 10, 11, 12 was published earlier this year in book form. They've been out for a year or so, all in ebook. But I'll put everything down at the bottom, and I'm looking forward to reading more, and for The Searchers. And have you read any? Has any? Well, I doubt anybody. I'm sure people have read Clifford Simak, but I doubt people have read his westerns, or very few have. I've only read 2, maybe 3. None of these 3 yet, but I have read 2 or 3 others. I can't remember the names. I'll hopefully recognize them as I read them. But that's all, because they have not been available in any other form. And I couldn't even find magazines, online scans of the other 2 that are missing. But oh well. I just hope that the volume 13 and 14 will be published soon. Take care, BookTube.